Have you ever connected so deeply with a story that you begin to sympathize with the main characters? You share in their victories, their defeats, and most importantly, you understand their motivations. If the past 100 years have taught us anything, it's that we live in an increasingly authoritarian society, lacking free thought and a fundamental grounding in truth. Elites are constantly fighting for power, and power, a key aspect of the human condition, is inextricably bound to control. Controlling thought, controlling actions, and by any means necessary, controlling the masses. Literature teaches us that there is value in being the one who dares to face life's challenges rather than dodging them, meaning that there is value in being the other. So who is the other? The other is an embodiment of the fears and anxieties of a zeitgeist. Throughout time, people have been increasingly drawn to the other because of its depictions of human autonomy. We see these modernist ideals play out in George Orwell's dystopian fiction novel 1984, a novel which draws on an epoch disconnected with reality by war and dictatorship, opening an opportunity for future appropriations of the other. To best manifest the value of being the other, I decided to compare 1984 with Alan Moore's 2005 action film V for Vendetta, depicting a modern context relating closely to the current world, defined by tyrannical governments, anxiety, and propaganda. Importantly, the texts teach us that in spite of changing context over a 60-year period, the need for otherness has remained unchanged. In the pursuit of truth, freedom is what makes us human, and by being an other we have the unique power to overthrow evil and inspire a society in a state of mass formation psychosis. George Orwell's 1984 is very much a reflection of his own context, capturing the post-war anxieties brought about by fascist regimes and the public uncertainty on the brink of the Cold War. Throughout the text, Orwell promotes fundamental modernist values surrounding freedom of thought and expression, and human autonomy free of government control. Through his clever characterization of Winston as the other, he necessitates a need for truth and the ability to love and be loved, warning that without others in society, you and I will be paralyzed by our so-called leaders. The state of Oceania is very much in mass formation psychosis, a critical theory describing governments who create a problem, raise concern of said problem through propaganda, and sell a solution as a means of controlling a large group of people. Sound familiar to what is happening these days? I thought so. Such an influence can only be achieved in an environment like that of 1984, which lacks truth and social connection, enhancing our understanding and appreciation of Winston as an other, as someone who is able to make self-informed decisions to gain freedom at the expense of social acceptance. Orwell explores this idea through the paradox, who controls the past controls the future, and who controls the present controls the past, where Winston cynically implies that the party can only maintain their position of authority so long as they rewrite the narrative of history to avoid contradictions. When viewed through a modernist lens, we see that those like Winston, the others in society, have the power to remain true to themselves, with logic and reason. Throughout the text, I'm led to believe that the only thing giving Winston a sense of reality is his love for Julia, which seems to transcend the state of mass formation psychosis and provide us with momentary glimpses of happiness. Tragically, by drawing on a dystopian form, Orwell reminds us that in a world which is fundamentally flawed by selfishness, good things must come to an end, and the fleeting connection between Winston and Julia fades away with the rest of reality. Orwell offers profound insights into the human quest for knowledge, juxtaposing the truth we know as 2 + 2 = 4 with the conflicting 2 + 2 = 5. This simple-sounding maths problem symbolizes a much deeper incongruency between believing what you believe in your heart and believing what the elites want you to believe. In the text, Winston is challenged to agree with the party's clearly flawed argument, or be tortured to a greater extent. When he claims that freedom is the freedom to say that 2 + 2 = 4, he is asserting a fundamental belief that the conditions of truth rely on the external world, independent from the party's ideology. By committing such a crime as thought crime, Winston is breaking the chains of authority and proving himself to be a strong individual with a will to remain human. Are you, like Winston, prepared to risk everything for the truth? Personally, after reading 1984, I am inspired to commit to this further, despite the disturbing psychological manipulation tactics I have seen used on Winston to wear him down mentally, which lead him to believe that he is insane and question the motives behind his rebellious actions. But this is all part of the party's plan to extinguish the possibility of independent thought. I now know that to remain true to myself, I have to understand that to be an other, I must sacrifice my own comforts and uphold what is right, and only then can I be truly free. Alan Moore's cautionary action film, V for Vendetta, not only draws inspiration from the US government's war on terror at the time of its creation, but also to the fascist regime of Nazi Germany in the 1930s. Several film techniques, combined with a contextually relevant plot, afford more the opportunity to criticize the relentless abuse of power by tyrannical governments, and warn of the influence of propaganda over the people. Appropriating the trope of the other to relate closely with our current world, Moore teaches us that people shouldn't be afraid of their government. Rather, governments should be afraid of their people. I want you to think about this for a second. What Moore is doing here is implying that the others in the film pose a substantial threat to fascism because they value freedom, highlighting the incredible amount of power in the masses should we choose to rebel. The others, V and Evie, represent the fears and anxieties of the government, being hyperbolized as terrorists by the media and depicted as a general safety concern, labels which propagate public apprehension. Furthermore, Moore's expert use of simile in saying, knowledge, like air, is vital to life, like air, no one should be denied it, demonstrates a natural human tendency to seek truth to survive, indicating that if you choose to be an other in this society, you are actually allowing yourself to live a better life than those who rely on government influence. James McTeague expertly utilizes the form of film to enhance notions of otherness. An example of this is his masterful use of the low-angle camera shot, directly after a clever cross-cut to show Finch's flashback, depicting V, after surviving near-fatal fire burns, as a figure of dominance and power due to his rebellion. Conversely, the leaders and those in power are often filmed with a high-angle shot to convey weakness, prompting people like yourselves to reflect on the power you may have as an other in society. Importantly, the subversion of fascist values in the film champions individualist ideals and exemplifies the unique power in being an other. Ultimately, 1984 and V for Vendetta teach us the important lesson that rebellions are much more powerful than dictators. After all, people shouldn't be afraid of their government, rather, governments should be afraid of their people. By responding to the text through the modernist and psychoanalytic critical lenses, we see that the power lies in the masses, meaning we must reconnect together as humanity and use that power to serve freedom rather than evil. Otherness has more value now than ever. I want you to look beyond the manufactured mainstream media and see how humans are being used by the elites to fulfill evil desires of power. But also to see beyond propaganda the incredible work freedom fighters are doing, and then ask yourself, do I have what it takes to be an other? Am I willing to sacrifice comfort and social acceptance to gain freedom? To say that 2 + 2 = 4? For all I know, maybe I'm just insane. Winston was. Thanks for listening to my presentation, and I wish the next speaker the best of luck.